This conference was of the most prominent preachers in the United States. So think of it. This would have been Billy Graham's of their day were in this conference. And they were invited to sing. But they could only sing one song. It would only be an intermission, and it would only be from the balcony. Come on. Intermission, a bunch of preachers, you know it wasn't quiet. There was chattering and talking and uncertain philosophizing and maybe even preaching to one another. It was loud. Now, here's what you have to know. The night before, something very, very, very special happened. Something that would change the destiny of the singers and would impact those men on the floor for the rest of their lives. In fact, it would impact our lives today and still be impacting our lives even as we speak. You see, that night before, Mr. White noticed the singers got together. They started singing songs that he had not taught them. And these were songs that were quite strange to him because they were not the classics. While they were beautiful in aura and the harmonizing was exquisite, the language was not dictatorial. In fact, it was somewhat muttered and, as we would say today, of slang. Yet, he cried when he listened. Because the songs had love and pain in them, joy and sadness, the love of God, the pain of the flesh. These songs that we would know today as Negro spirituals, songs that were sung on the plantation, a combination of their African roots and their American experience. Mr. White was in love. It was new music. He had never heard it. And so we decided that day, that next day, it's a prominent event, is that the one song that they would sing would not be a classic. He was going to take a great risk. He was going to let those singers sing a Negro spiritual. Why is this so important? Because I want you to understand this. For then, no one outside of the backfields of the plantations in the South had heard this music. This was about to be the first time that our music would hit the national stage. Is when that balcony started to ring out the song "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." As they bellowed it out, music echoed across the balcony. The historian Andrew Ward writes this. He said that there began to be a hush over the room. Think about it. The song hushed preachers. And then, not only did it hush them, they began to weep. The anointing touched their lives. And it's said that by the end of the song, ladies and gentlemen, there was not a dry eye in the building. Bravos and shouts rang out in astonishment. The men yelled for an encore. So they sang another Negro spiritual and then another Negro spiritual. After that event, invitations to appear in the best and largest American churches came to the singers, and our new music was born. There's one other thing that happened that night. Mr. White spent the rest of the evening in the presence of God. God talked to him about who his singers were and what they were doing. He said, "Are not your singers singing to forgive the debt of the school? Did I not do that every 50 years with the year of Jubilee? Therefore you shall call your singers the Fisk Jubilee singers." They toured up the north. They were invited to the White House and performed before President Grant. They would enter concert halls, open the curtains, and people would stand and cheer before a song was even sung. Mark Twain himself became a fan of the Jubilee Singers. They would eat dinner with Frederick Douglass in his home in the heights of D.C. And finally, They would be invited to go to Europe, perform before dukes, duchess, and the Queen Victoria herself. She wrote in her diary that night, she said, "Since the death of my husband, I've not been touched by anything more than I was touched by the songs of the Fisk Jubilee singers." Those young men and women raised $150,000. May not sound like much, but in our equivalent to our dollars today, we've calculated it's over $3 million of today's cash. What did they do? Their association with President Grant bought a few favors. In fact, one of the favors was that the Union Army had an old contraband camp in Nashville where they kept prisoners. It was on the highest point in North Nashville. You could see over the entire city because it was a strategic point. They bartered. Think about it, the audacity with President Grant to get that property, and he gave it to them. And on that property, they built Jubilee Hall, from the ground up, to the first permanent structure ever built in America for the education of African Americans in the South. Now, here's why I took the time to tell you that story. That experiment was saved. The idea that our people could learn at the highest of American standard was saved. And not only was it saved, but some of the best and brightest then began to come, like a young man by the name of William Eckhart Du Bois, who as a young man applied to Harvard and was told he wasn't good enough to get in. Do you believe that? So they said, if you're bright and you're black, there is a place for you, and it's called Fisk in Nashville. And so he came, graduated from the top of his class, and then would go to Harvard to receive his PhD. And became the first African American to do so. He set the bar for black intelligentsia, and so did Fisk. Fisk started that then, and we continue to press the envelope now. We challenge America and even the world to accept the fact that people that look like us can in fact aspire to the highest of any position, that we can be the best. Have we not done that? First PhD in chemistry, Fisk graduate. Second PhD in physics, Fisk graduate. First PhD from Columbia and first PhD black at Princeton, both Fisk graduates. First African American female to receive the PhD in mathematics, Fisk graduate. First African American to receive the PhD in zoology, Fisk graduate. First African American woman to serve as United States Secretary of Energy, Hazel O'Leary, Fisk graduate. Would you like me to continue? Yes. Yes. You're testing. We could talk about the first African American to perform with the Boston Symphony, Fisk graduate. We could talk about the first African American woman to sing with the Metropolitan Opera, also a Fisk graduate. We talk about the fact that Fisk was the first African American institution to receive a Phi Beta Kappa chapter. In case you're unaware of what Phi Beta Kappa happens to be, it is the oldest and most prestigious honor society in the world. The first. And we've inducted Phi Beta Kappas for a very long time. Why am I taking the time to share this? Everyone in this room, you're a student or a parent, if you're here because you are attempting to position yourself in order to, one, be taken very seriously when you graduate. In other words, to position yourself for opportunity after graduation. And I want to make certain that you get the most out of your college experience while you're waiting in. So, I think the question that I would need to answer for you then is the Fisk experiment still working in a way that allows you to get that kind of access, to get that kind of opportunity? Is it that when you finish the Fisk degree, the Fisk experience, that you are better position, not just better position, but better position than perhaps going someplace else. I think so. In fact, I'm not the only one who thinks so. Mr. Gonzalez pointed out, so does Ford magazine, who says that of all HBCUs in the United States, Fisk is ranked number one. We can also talk to corporations. Talk about the fact that Google thinks we're pretty good. And so much so until they've sent a Google scholar that works at the Fisk campus. We have multiple Google interns each year. Wells Fargo interns, Deloitte and Touche interns. We can talk about graduate school. Are we still training PhDs? Well, the National Science Foundation said this, that of all African Americans today in the United States who have a PhD in the natural sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, the majority of them have done their undergraduate study at one place, Fisk University. You should also know this, that each year, while the national average, by the way, is roughly about 25% of a graduating class that will go into graduate school, ours, on a consistent basis, is well over 50%. In fact, as high as 61% of our graduates have gone straight into graduate school. Why is that? Well, we've got such a long track record of getting it done. And by the way, when I say getting it done, I'm not just talking about getting you into the graduate school. There has to be something that's done in your Fisk experience that prepares you well enough to get out. And that's the reason that young people come to us from around the country, because they know there's something that's going to happen at Fisk. One, we're going to give you a degree that's going to be respected by the graduate school admissions committee. One. Two, we're going to give you in-class activity that's going to expand your capacity to be able to understand and do on a graduate level. I'll give you an example. I was fortunate to graduate from Fisk. Fifth in my class, and Phi Beta Kappa, summa cum laude. And I went to Vanderbilt for graduate school. Here's why I say that. There were two Phi Beta Kappas in my class at Vanderbilt. One from Duke, and I was from Fisk. You want to know the difference between the two of us? Both had wonderful undergraduate preparations, but the difference was confidence. Confidence. See, I was like many of you in high school. I was that student. I was from a middle-class family. My parents were business owners. I was expected to do well. I was Mr. This and Mr. That in high school. Captain of the band, football, all that stuff. So when I went to Fisk, I thought Fisk, I was doing it a favor. Thanking me for coming in. Until we got into opening convocation. Some of our alums might remember this, but we've been doing it for years and years and years, where you come into the Fisk Chapel at the beginning of the school year. Ladies, you wear white dresses or pantsuits. Men, dark suits. You sit in the same seats that many alums have sat in before you. And the president does the same thing. He or she stands and talks about the demographics of the class and says things like, can all of the class presidents please stand? And then they stand. Can all of the newspaper editors please stand in? So me, kind of, as they used to say, the young people used to say, peep the game. I used one of those phrases one time. My staff was like, qualify that, please. So as I said, as they used to say, thought that I was getting ready to stand quite a bit. Maybe be the only one. So, until I started standing and my whole row stood up with me. Will the valedictorians please stand? Salutatory. What is I saying? What I'm saying is that Fisk attracts young people that will push one another. If you're used to being the big fish in a small pond, come to Fisk and find out what it's like to be small fish, big pond. Why? Because that is part of the package to give you the persistence, the competition that you need in order to be the best. What have we garnered? A reputation that is known as a prep school for graduate study. Prep school for graduate study. It's often said in the Fisk community, the national community, you can spot a Fisk student in town. I know that might sound old school for some of us. So many people, and people are all so different. And what is it about Fisk students that would make them so stand out? Well, I'll tell you what it is. When you are indoctrinated over a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year process, when you hear the same stuff that I'm telling you today over and over again about the legacy that you are a part of, about the standard that you must meet, about the fact that when you step off this campus, you not only represent yourself, but all the reputation that Fisk is, you tend to carry yourself a different way. That's the confidence I'm talking about that was different than I had than my classmate at Vanderbilt. And that's what I believe that we can do for you today. That's why I came to California. Not only to sweat out this suit, to also give you a sense of what you're investing in. It is an investment. Parents, Fisk is $32,000 a year. At the end of 4 years, you will have paid $120,000 in investment. Now, my alums might remember this. I said here once, I said that number once in a meeting like this, and I said that is the equivalent of a starter home. And Californians laughed me out the window. That is a garage. Now I get that, I know that. But the point is, it's quite an investment, and for many of our young people, you will have never made that type of investment. So the question is, what are you going to do? How are you going to use it? What's your return that you plan to get on that investment? Now, by the way, I should also mention parents and students. Our administration, our senior leadership team, my colleagues and I made a very critical decision this year that we would, in light of the willingness to help parents with planning and to encourage what has been pretty good for Fisk in terms of 4-year graduation rates, we decided to freeze tuition and fees. I'll tell you how that works. A student who comes in next year, new student who comes in next year, the tuition cost and the fee cost of next year stays their tuition and fee until they graduate for 4 years. That is very good. We will not raise it. As long as they are persistent, they will keep that tuition and fee. Now, clear, it doesn't include room and board. Those fees will continue to adjust at about a 2% rate per year. But the tuition and fee will stay the same. Now, if they've not graduated in 4 years, then the 5th year, it does adjust to what the cost is in that year. So we want to make certain that we are encouraging and pushing our students to get our school. We love you. Get your hat and your coat, and you don't have to eat. Right? We really do. We want them to aspire and achieve and get to where they're going, because that all just helps all of us. So that is going to start next year. For our current students that are there, start in their current year and remain. If they're a sophomore, then they have 3 years. If they're a junior, they have 2 years. If they're a senior, oh well. And we're doing that because we know that this is a partnership. We want to do our best to try to partner with families to make the Fisk experience as good an experience as possible. Okay, so one of the other things that I want to quickly talk about is that of financial aid, sort of how that whole thing works. How many seniors do we have with us? Senior students. Okay, quite a few. Great. Congrats, by the way, guys. Juniors, just because I'm curious. Juniors. Okay. Sophomores? Hey, all right, very good. Freshmen? All right. And we have one 6th grader in the room. Give it up for the 6th grader. She is a great granddaughter of one of our alums here in Los Angeles who does a fantastic job for us. So hopefully we'll be seeing her at Fisk here. The reason I asked for my seniors is that my hope is that all 100% of you, whether you've gotten a scholarship from Fisk or not, have applied for the FAFSA form. In other words, completed that process. And I would encourage you to do that as early as you can, which means parents, it involves your tax forms. Now sometimes it gets a little bit sticky because for various reasons parents choose to apply later, choose to complete their taxes later, which delays the process, it would seem. However, I'll give you a little tip. If your income has not changed dramatically over the previous year, you can use last year's numbers. Okay? Use last year's numbers. It is very rare that the federal government will do what's called verification. They typically do that if you use numbers that are just way off. But if last year's numbers, if your salary has not changed, say maybe a couple percentage points, it is very okay and accepted practice to use your tax forms. Now, the point though is trying to get your FAFSA form finished early because there are dollars that you could be awarded that do run out. It's not just a Fisk issue, that is an issue of all campuses around the United States. I'll give you an example. There is what's called a Pell Grant. You're familiar with the Pell Grant. That maximum is about $5,500. And you can get a range of that depending on what's called the Family Expected Contribution number. In other words, the number that the federal government says that you as a family can pay. And that's based on income. I'll tell you that the average student at Fisk, family at Fisk will qualify for right at around $2,000 in Pell Grant. Doesn't mean that we don't have people who qualify for $500. We do. It doesn't mean we don't have people who don't qualify at all. We certainly do. Yeah, well, on average, about $2,000 a Pell Grant. There's another grant that's called the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, SEOG. That money is not guaranteed to be there for every student. You can qualify for it, but it is given to the university based on the percentage of their graduates who pay back their federal loans. It's a formula that they use. And so there's a limited pot every year. Students who apply early are those who put themselves in the best position to receive those loans. There's another pool of money called Perkins Loan. It too is a limited pool that is based off of a percentage of the loans who pay back their federal loans. That is available at a limited basis. And then there is the unsubsidized and subsidized loans. And just to clear up what's the difference between the two, subsidized simply means that if you were to borrow in your freshman year, the federal government begins to pay the interest on that loan for you. And will continue to pay that interest as long as you are in school. Unsubsidized means that they don't. Interest starts accruing the moment that you take out that loan. I often encourage parents and students to think of to approach it in these terms. Find out what the interest rate is on your unsubsidized loan if you have one, and pay that as a monthly fee to the federal government, which you can. Therefore, that loan too, by the time you graduate, could likely not have any interest that is accrued to you. Now, we also have Fisk grants. These dollars can range up to $7,500. And we work with the financial aid office and with families to try to estimate how much to support. Okay? Those are all open. And I also cannot have to mention, be remiss if I did not, that we have legacy scholarships. So these are scholarships that are set aside specifically for the children, grandchildren of our alumni and siblings of alums as well. Okay. Now, of course, there are the sports scholarships. We wouldn't handle that in our division, but Patrick does handle that in volleyball. So if you play volleyball, sick it. He is the man. All coaches make their own determination on sports scholarships. you would want to get with a coach in that respective area. Check with him on what that looks like. We have music scholarships for those of you who may be musically inclined. We have a simple process of having you to submit an audition tape, YouTube video, or MP3 performance that we send to our faculty in the music department. They review that and then can decide whether or not you'd be a candidate for a music scholarship. And for those of you who are musically inclined and come to Fisk for the Scholars Weekend, Patrick, you talked about that, right? You can audition then for a scholarship, and that scholarship can be as much as $7,500 per year. All right, now, how about our regular or our normal academic scholarships, if you will? We have 7. First is our general scholarship, $5,000 to $10,000. Patrick, I'm not going to put you on the spot to tell us what are the requirements for that. But do you have a sense? I think it's 3.0. I have 3.0. 21, 22 ACT. Okay. And then we have the what we call the Provost Scholarship. So go back to my $32,000 figure. Tuition, the tuition that's going to be frozen, is $19,000 of that. About $19,000 plus $19,500, give or take a few. That Provost Scholarship covers that amount. All 4 years, or all the years that you're at Fisk, as long as you maintain the necessary GPA in order to keep your scholarship. And then, finally, we have the Presidential Scholarship. And that is the scholarship that covers everything. Tuition, room, board, and fees, plus another $1,000 for books. Another $1,000 for books, $500 per semester. Oh, and I did forget to mention, we have the Leadership Scholarship as well. That can be up to as much as $7,500, and that is awarded based on just that, your leadership attributes that you've shown. And we want to reward that, and we want to see that play itself out at Fisk, because we very much attract young people who are leaders. And so that's part of our ethos. We want to continue. All right, so it gives you a sense of what the financial opportunities are at the university. I'm going to put a bookmark there for now. I'm sure there's a lot more that I can share. But I want to give us some time to ask questions. And then we'll move into the next phase of asking some of our guests that are here in the room. So, any questions that you go ahead? Yes, ma'am, please.
So what's the percentage of students who keep their scholarships, like the presidential scholarship?
Yeah, it's actually well over 80% of our students. Our goal is to try to help students stay in school. So what we do, when we give you a scholarship, there is a process that we take you through before we would ever take it away. One is after the first semester that you have a GPA in jeopardy, right? So this isn't even a GPA where you've lost it. We just think that you're trending towards losing it, right? We're going to send you a warning, the student and the parent. Now, parents, just give you a little heads up here. The federal government has decided that your young person at Fisk or UC Davis or wherever you might send him or her has the right to their own grades and has to give you their permission to see them. Hey, don't kill the messenger. I'm just telling you. So it's called a FERPA form that you have to sign. The student has to sign it. Parent signs it, then that gives the university the right to give you their information. And so I would encourage you to have a nice little conversation with your young person and say, sign this form. All right, we'll send you that form as part of your admissions packet or information leading up to your enrollment in August. Then when you come to orientation, we'll give you the form again, just in case you didn't see that. When we have that form, we are able to send you the notice that your young person may be in jeopardy. You have a warning semester. Then after the warning semester, you have a probationary semester. So let's just say the warning semester, you didn't get the warning. So you still slid, and you get a GPA that's not what's required. you have another semester on probation. After the semester probation, if you've not pulled it up at that point, that's when the scholarship is taken away. Now, keep in mind, one of the things we are working very hard to do during that time period is seeing if there are other funds that the parent and student may have access to. And for parents, there certainly is. There is now what's called the Parent Plus Loan. Some of you may or may not know about that. The federal government has said that they want to give parents, and this is actually the language that they use, the opportunity to participate in the cost of their child's education. Congratulations. They're being very kind. So let me tell you how it works. I don't want to confuse you, but I'm going to throw out some numbers here. Total cost, I said at this, for tuition, room, board, and fees. Anybody remember? Very good. Not surprising. Remember that. But the total budget of the university is 48. Here's the difference. For federal purposes, the university has to estimate for you how much books, toiletries, travel, bed linens, and so forth would cost, so that you could borrow up to that amount should you choose, using the federal loan funds. Okay? That's where the Parent Plus Loan often comes into play. Sometimes it's the case that a young person might have scholarship enough, where they're maybe at 32 or a little shy of it, and you want to use your federal loan money on top of that in order to cover the 48. It's totally up to you. The point is that the federal government has provided a Parent Plus Loan that does allow you to borrow up to help with some of that cost. So what we're trying to do during this time period that a student might be having some challenges is trying to work with the student and the parent to say, hey, look, we're trending this way, but here's what you've got out there that can help in case you lose the scholarship. I said a lot. Hopefully that answered your question. Other questions, please? Yes, ma'am.
Do the scholarships get upgraded? So let's say you come in with $3 and
Yep. And so can you go up? Your question. The answer is no. However, it's a good question, and we get asked it all the time. Here's what we do have. We have another set of scholarships that's called endowed scholarships. So, folk in the room, like my fellow alumni, might say, I am going to put aside X amount of dollars, I'm going to donate to Fisk in a scholarship fund for a student. My wife and I, by the way, for example, have a scholarship at Fisk that we call the Success by Design Scholarship for males of color. There are criteria that's set around that scholarship. The Los Angeles Fisk Club has scholarship monies that they've sent to the school and so forth. So what we do is we look for those students who are aspiring and doing well each year to try to give them those scholarships. So it could be that you might end up with $4,000, $7,000, even a $12,000 scholarship. That is one of the endowed scholarships. There's an Office of Institutional Advancement that handles that. We direct students to them. And the last thing is, keep in mind, Fisk is a UNCF school. Hello! It's wonderful news. And the reason it works, it means that as a Fisk student, you have access to UNCF dollars that some others don't. And so if you're not on the UNCF site looking at those scholarships, I encourage you to do so. So we have not only scholarships that students can go out and apply for, but also UNCF gives us dollars each year that we use to try to move around as best as we can to try to help students to stay in school. Get your question? Thank you. All right, someone else, another question? Yes, sir.
The transition from high school to college, obviously, is a difficult one.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Any type of mentoring program when you come to freshman.
Yeah, great question. Spoken exactly like a Catholic man. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
You were looking at me.
I was James. Dr. James talking about fiscal loan. Yeah, actually, it's a great question, and it's one that we're very keen on because, again, for us, it's about the student finishing, and we understand the biggest challenge is between that freshman and that sophomore year. We've got a couple things. One, you have a mentor when you come to Fisk in the form of your orientation leader, that person that you begin to bond even before you come. Some of you have already been admitted. You'll start receiving phone calls from those young people who are, quote, assigned to you. So that's one. Two, we have an office on campus that's called the Office of Academic Excellence and Student Performance. And that office's job is to make certain that they are tracking all new students. They are available to all students, but certainly tracking all new students, looking at their academic progress. Faculty have to submit progress reports, if you will, on students who they feel might have some challenges academically. The other thing is that they send home midterm letters. Did you hear that? Midterm letters are sent home to parents that have a FERPA form. And so the student gets to know where they are at midterm, the parent gets to know where they are at midterm as well. Now, the other thing is that we have a tremendous amount, in my opinion, for the size of our school, clubs and organizations that students have an opportunity to be, in which they have an opportunity to be involved. We have over 60 different clubs and organizations. So the terms of opportunity to connect is quite extensive. And then lastly, ladies, in all due respect, this is in no disrespect to you, but we also have, for the young men, we have the Talented 10 Leadership Development Program for males of color. Because we feel obligated to pay special attention to our young men only because of the plight, particularly of African American males right now in the United States. So there is that opportunity to connect as well. So we do get it and know that that's a very, very critical year for students, and we want to do the best that we can to make sure that people are connected with the right platform. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
For kids who may be struggling, is there like, I know you have a mentor that connects with you through the year, but what type of mentoring, academic mentoring for kids who may be struggling with something or another?
Yep. So that again, it starts with the professor and the AESP, that Academic Excellence and Student Performance Group. It starts there with them identifying that student. And by the way, that's one of the, we think, selling points of Fisk. But I would rather think of it in even softer terms, in terms of the relational parts of Fisk, is your classroom size there on average is 12 to 1. Talking about a very in-your-face, intimate experience with your professors who are telling you you ain't getting it, right? Or telling you you are and you're doing very well and motivating you. And so they're able to identify a student who is sort of getting off track and then work with AESP. Now, what AESP has are a couple of things. One, they have what's called supplemental instruction. Simply put, they have graduate students that actually go into a student's class with them, hear what the professor is saying, and then that graduate student and that student have a one-on-one tutoring schedule that they are on. Right? It's called supplemental instruction. Other thing is that we have just straight tutoring. And we have tutoring for a lot. Of course, most of our more difficult subjects, some of you may have heard the term GATE courses. GATE courses are those courses in a major where if you don't pass this course, you might want to think about doing something else, right? And so for those GATE courses, we certainly have, like for example, our pre-med majors, organic chemistry, definitely GATE course. Lots of tutoring opportunity around organic chemistry, right? For political science majors, right? Constitutional law. Lots of tutoring around constitutional law, right? I see you shaking your head back there. Right? Lots of tutoring around that. So we have an ability because of our close relationships in the classroom to really zero in on students who might be having those challenges.